Go. Time to get started. Thank you all for coming to this session. This is Creating Room for All Voices. My name is Lauren Faber, and I am a Senior Program Manager on the Power BI Customer Advisory Team. And today I'm going to be talking about how you can create more inclusive teams where everyone can feel heard, safe, and part of working towards the solution together, regardless of their backgrounds. And I want to start by saying that obviously, I am a white female, so a lot of my experiences and stories that I'll be sharing today come from that perspective. But I do believe that the things that I'll share and the experiences that I have had can be applicable to backgrounds of a lot of different varieties, whether we're looking at including voices of people of color or those who might have mental health challenges, or even the voices of those who have traditionally been seen as the typical role within tech and business. So to give a little bit of background on myself, I grew up in a large family. There were 8 kids, 7 girls. So from the time I was born, I constantly had to fight for my voice to be heard. There were a lot of different opinions and a lot of quite literally loud voices going on. And being on the younger end of my family, this was sometimes a struggle for me to feel like my opinion and my voice was being heard. And if you have had trouble figuring out which one I am, because my sisters and I all look essentially the same, I am that one close to the left end right there. So then fast forward, I attended BYU, Brigham Young University, which is a very religious university, and as such has a disparity in the genders that go into tech majors more than some other universities might even have. So I entered the information systems program and found myself being one of 12 females in a 120 student program. So as a female, the female group made up essentially just 10% of that program. So once again, I found myself in a situation where I looked around and saw a lot of people that looked very different than me and was trying to figure out, how do I get my voice heard in this situation? And I wasn't always the best at it, and I struggled at times. And then I started my job after I graduated with my degree, and I entered the Power BI CAT team at Microsoft. And my first day of work, I walked in, and these are some of the people that I was introduced to. And this was the team that I was going to be a part of. And I met, the famous guy in a cube, Adam and Patrick. And I was on the same team as Chris Webb and Matthew Roach and Casper and Phil, and these people who were extremely well known in the BI world. And here I was coming off as a college graduate, once again asking myself, I don't know where I fit in here. I'm not sure if there's room for my voice on this team. And honestly, at first thinking, I think they might have made a mistake on putting me on this team. I'm not really sure where I'm supposed to fit in with all of these other BI experts. And as much as you have imposter syndrome at a first job, I felt like it was elevated by looking at my peers around me and questioning if I should be there or not. And so I kind of had some expectations that it would be like it had been in the past, where I was having to fight to have my voice be heard and to feel included in the conversation. And I can confidently say that has not been my experience at all. And so what I want to share today is some of the things that my team members and my manager on the Power BI CAT team did to make it so that I could be included, my voice could be heard, and as such, I could be successful. And I think the things that they did are universal, that if we can apply those to any team and situation, we can help every single person succeed regardless of their backgrounds. So one of the first things that the team and my manager did was something called amplification. An amplification is a public endorsement of someone's idea with proper attribution of credit. Within the first month or two, I found that my manager and my teammates and my mentor were honestly quite active and obsessive about promoting the work that I was doing. And it took me a little bit by surprise. It seemed like any meeting we were in, or even through emails, they were constantly telling other people about the ideas that I had or the work that I was doing. And that did a couple of things. For one, it built my confidence up. of saying, wow, my team of all of these experts and my manager, they care about the work that I'm doing. And if you're interested in hearing more about that work, I have a session tomorrow at 1:20 that you can come hear about what I did. This helped a lot with my imposter syndrome of saying, hey, I am valued here. My voice does matter. And it did a couple of other things as well. For one, it opened a lot of doors that if I had gone and tried to knock on myself, probably wouldn't have opened as easily. Because my team and my boss was constantly promoting the work that I was doing, people knew my name. They knew who I was. They knew the goals of what I was trying to accomplish. So then when I engaged with those people, it was a lot easier, and it allowed for my ideas and the work that I was doing to be accepted and to be able to progress a lot more effectively. And a lot of times people can think that amplification has to be of a manager to someone on their team. But studies have shown that peer-to-peer amplification is just as effective as being amplified by one of your managers. Studies have also shown that amplification not only helps the person whose ideas are being amplified, but also the person who is amplifying that person. Both are seen in a more positive light after the amplification. So it's really a win-win situation. The next thing that I want to talk about is diversity does not equal inclusion. We often hear these words together, and if I didn't stop to think about them myself, I'd a lot of the time kind of think that they're one and the same, but they're definitely not. As far as diversity goes, when I entered the Power BI CAT team, at the time, I was the only female on the team, and so, I kind of checked that diversity box. It would have been really easy for my team to say, well, great, we have a female, we're diverse now, we're good. But that's not what happened. They constantly and continually included me in the conversations and made sure that I knew that they wanted to hear my opinion. And while I might not have the technical expertise that their decades of experience had given them, the opinions that I did have did matter. And the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, said, the next time you are in a meeting, ask the quietest person what they think. Invite everyone into the conversation. If you are on a conference call, ask the people on the phone to share their thoughts first. And that was very much my experience. We would be on team calls or even customer calls, and I found that specifically my manager would often ask me what my opinion was. And that honestly scared me a little bit at first. I was scared of giving the wrong opinion. And so the first couple of times I would kind of give a wishy-washy answer, but the more often that I was asked for my opinion and that it was received well, the more confident I started becoming in sharing that. And I hope, and I like to think that now, I'm a lot better at giving my opinion or sharing my thoughts and ideas without having to be asked first. But because this is what the members of the team did, it really helped me get my feet on the ground to know that I was capable of being able to do this on my own as well. So when it comes to being able to have an inclusive team, there are 6 traits that studies have shown, if you have as a manager, will help your team to be able to feel more included. So the first one is ensuring team members to speak up, similar to what I was just talking about. I added my own in there with warning. I appreciated when beforehand my boss would sometimes tell me, hey, I'm going to ask you to share this idea or thought that we had talked about separately so that I wasn't caught off guard. It's not always possible. You have a lot of things on your plate to do, but it was nice if it was a bigger conversation that was going to be had. The second thing is to empower team members to make decisions. Letting your team members know that you trust them and that you're going to have their back in that decision making is massive. And there's a difference between simply giving someone tasks versus giving them a goal and then having the faith in them that they can go and achieve that goal. Of course, guiding them along the way, but giving them that ability that they know that they're empowered to make decisions on their own. The third is taking advice and implementing feedback. So as a manager or as a teammate, being willing to hear what others have to say and then working on that. And not just being willing, but seeking it out. I found that in the first little bit of my job, my manager was very clear in this, saying, We are here to have a relationship. I'm not here to just manage you. As we continue to communicate and figure out how we work effectively together, I'll give you feedback, you give me feedback, and we'll be able to work better as a team. And that goes along with giving actionable feedback. Rather than just saying, hey, you did this thing wrong, but instead being able to say something like, what if next time we approach the situation in this way? And working with the employee to be able to know how to approach the situation differently the next time. The fourth is making it a safe place to propose new ideas. And I've hit on this point a lot. But whenever someone brings an idea, you might not always agree with it, but making sure that they know that they can bring that idea to you. And even if that's not the one that you go with, encouraging those ideas to be shared. And the last one is sharing credit for team success. This goes well along with amplification, but also making sure that others know that things are a team effort. It is very, very rarely just one person who ever leads to a success. And so what studies found is that if the team leader has at least 3 of these traits, then 87% of their team members say that they feel like they're part of and on an inclusive team. Whereas if a manager has 0 of these, then that number drops down to only about 50% of people saying they feel included. The CEO of Google said that a diverse mix of voices leads to better discussions, decisions, and outcomes for everyone. Inclusive teams, they actually make better business decisions up to 87% of the time. And decisions made and executed by diverse teams delivered 60% better results. So you can't even argue with the fact that inclusive and diverse teams are better for business, and they're better for everyone on the team. So leading into the next part of going from having both a diverse and an inclusive team, we see that having that seat at the table doesn't always necessarily mean that you have a voice at that table. So the university that I went to, Brigham Young University, conducted a study on group decision making, and they wanted to see specifically how this applied to gender roles. So what they did is they divided groups up into 5 people, and they would have a group of all men, all women, 1 woman, 1 man, did a lot of varieties of switching up the genders, and then they gave them a task that they needed to achieve. So for example, giving them a certain amount of money and having the group decide what charities that money should go to and how to divide it up. And then they said, you need to make this decision by a specific time. And what they were trying to study was how people interacted with each other in that group. And what the study found was that when a woman was by herself, she spoke consistently the least in the group. But when a man was by himself, he spoke about just the same amount of time as a man would if he was in an all-male group. If you put a woman alone in a group with 4 other men, 70% of the interruptions that she received from men were negative. Whereas if there was only 1 man in the group and 4 other females, then only 20% of the interruptions from men were negative. So you can see that when other people of similar backgrounds were together, it felt, you could see that there was a difference in the types of interruptions. And it's interesting to me, this difference between negative interruptions versus only 20% not being negative, because the fact that interruptions are happening at all is also a concern when you're trying to have a voice and a seat at the table. I was recently on a call at work where I think because I was preparing this session, I was really aware of these things going on. And I noticed that a female on the call kept getting cut off. And so rather than just accepting this after the male who had cut her off finished his thought, I said, you know, that's a great thought, but let's put that on hold for a second because I really want to hear what this person had to say. Can we let her finish her thought? And so it's important to recognize when this is happening to people, and not just women, but anyone on your team, and allowing them to be able to finish that thought so that they can feel motivated to continue to share. They also found that if the signals that were sent to women were things such as, I agree, or good idea, or yes, then the women started to participate more. And so being aware of the words that we're using, and when you do agree with someone's idea, let them know with something as simple as, I agree, good idea. And when you don't, being careful of the words that we're using to not say something like, that's a terrible idea, or no, that's wrong, but framing in a way of, I can see where you're coming from, but what if we think about it like this, or really trying to use inclusive language. And all of this really comes down to encouraging an environment where people can be themselves and be authentic. Satya Nadella said that a strong company culture happens when each employee is able to bring their personal passions and philosophies to work in a way that creates meaning for them. We want people to feel like they can be themselves. And doing things like amplification and making sure people feel included and not just a diversity check mark. Being able to make sure that people have a voice at the table they're sitting at. When these things happen, people feel confident and comfortable being themselves because they have been able to be themselves and see that their team appreciates and accepts their ideas because of it. Some people might have heard that last slide and thought, well, why don't women just speak up more? But the whole idea is that we don't want people to show up to work and act and behave just like other people have. We want to create the space for people to be able to work in the way that helps them to succeed and do their best work. And for me, I ended up being able to see that I could be myself and I could be successful on this team. But it was because of the way that the other members and my manager constantly amplified my work, consistently asked me for my opinion and included me, and always made sure that I wasn't just sitting in a meeting, but that I had a voice in that meeting. And I realized in the end that if I had come in and tried to do the job that I needed to do, acting like these experts in the field on my team, I would have failed because I would not have been playing to my strengths, and I would have been pretending to be someone that I'm not. And so it was because I was able to come in and use my own unique talents and strengths and abilities, coupled with a team that supported me and created an environment to foster my success and my growth, that I was able to succeed on an amazing, amazing team full of incredible people. So I hope that today, these things that I have shared, you can take away and be able to, at work, realize ways that you can help amplify others, that you can include them, and that you can make sure that everyone has a voice at that table. And thank you so much for coming today. That's all I have. And if you wouldn't mind sharing your feedback on the forum, it would be very much appreciated. But thank you for coming.